And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I apologize for that longer than normal wait. I was putting eye drops in my eye. Really difficult staring at the screen and the light directly in front of me, but that's besides the point. So, in this third segment, we are going to be talking about Zach LaVine and the situation around the Chicago Bulls. Now, as you guys know, Zach LaVine and the Bulls, they've been in trade talks for about the longest time. It seems every single trade deadline, Zach LaVine's name gets mentioned on the trade block. And every single time, the Bulls just don't trade him. I've been saying this since the trade rumors were starting. I knew Zach LaVine wasn't going to get traded. His name always appears on the trade block, but ends up being that no team is really interested in legitimately trading for him. And then he goes to amend his relationship once again and goes ahead and continues to play with the Chicago Bulls. This happens like all the time. It happens almost every single off season. And it happens every single time with the Bulls in regards to Zach LaVine. He's always on the trade block. He always gets talked about that, how great it would be if he was on another team. And then he stays with Chicago. It's really like a problem. And it's happening once again. The article starts out with the header saying, everyone is saying the same thing after reports of Chicago Bulls and Zach LaVine mending their relationship amid off-season drama goes viral. So we're going to go ahead into this article. Following DeMar DeRozan and Caruso's departure in the summer, the Bulls were expected to trade All-Star Zach LaVine. This wasn't the first time that they were expected to trade Zach LaVine. However, the franchise changed course ahead of its 2024 to 2025 season and is reportedly mending its relationship with the 29-year-old guard, causing a social media stir. I don't know how often and how many times the Bulls are just going to continue saying he's going to get traded and then doesn't end up trading him. I don't know how many times it's going to happen, but it's about time that the Bulls actually legitimately commit to a full rebuild of the team. Because, let's face it, everything that they have been doing has not worked. They tried teaming him up with Zach. They tried teaming him up with DeMar and Vucevic, and it seemed like it would be good, but then the honeymoon did not last. They were only a play-in team. They weren't even, and at times they weren't even a play-in team at some point. And again, it's just disappointment after disappointment after disappointment for the Chicago Bulls. And like, it's all in the Zach LaVine era, and it's just like, when are you going to give up? Like, when are you going to give up on him? And it doesn't seem like they're really letting up. They really want him to succeed. And LaVine, he joined the Bulls from Minnesota in 2017 and was featured in the 2022 NBA playoffs. In the last two seasons, however, Chicago failed to qualify for the playoffs, losing out in play-in games. And due to his injury last season, Zach LaVine only played 25 games, averaging 19 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists, and almost 4 assists, And this is part of the reason why why a lot of people don't want to trade for Zach LaVine, because while he is a talent, he tends to be very injury prone. And why would you trade for a talent that tends to be rather injury prone? And I mean, he's a fantastic dunker, a fantastic shooter, has great handles, a fantastic player. But again, injuries, like, your best ability is your availability, and no one is really going to take a risk on trading for somebody who's not only rather, I don't even want to say mediocre, because he's a very good talent, but like a good talent. How about that? Not a great or an outstanding talent. No one is going to risk trading for a good talent. They're going to risk trading for an outstanding talent, without a doubt, yes, but a good talent, I'm not entirely sure. And again, maybe this isn't Zach LaVine's season. Again, we don't know, because he's constantly injured every time. And he's not getting any younger in this league. And that's another thing that's really concerning with the Bulls. And I mean, he's still relatively young, but again, as the years go on, if they keep trying to create a formula that works for him on Chicago, I think that's only detrimenting his own career. But that's just me, however. So, following DeMar DeRozan's free agency trade to the Sacramento Kings and replacing Caruso in a trade with Josh Giddey from OKC, LaVine remains the biggest name on the Bulls roster. However, a report from The Athletic suggested that the franchise is repairing the bond with LaVine, and the fans on social media have a lot of mixed reactions. So let's go ahead and see what the reactions are. So Zach LaVine might as well leave. The Bulls are doing him no favor. He is legit wasting his time and prime there. And I completely agree with that quote coming in from @WillTheSanin from Twitter, from X, formerly known as Twitter. Excuse me about that. And really, there's another tweet that comes in saying the saga will never end, and he completely understands and is completely aware of the Zach LaVine dilemma that's been going on with the Bulls. It happens every single time. Bulls should ship him out to other NBA teams. Oh wait, no team wants him. That's another post coming in from Health00810. And yes, that is also very, very true, because again, no team is going to be willing to make a risk and make that leap with Zach LaVine. He's just not worth it at the end of the day. And it's really bad, because it's like, I really think that Zach should just abandon ship, honestly. Just get out of there himself, because it doesn't seem like the Bulls are willing to, they want to get rid of him, but then when they figure out that they can't get rid of him, they're like, oh, okay, well, we could keep you for a little bit. We could keep you, and, we could see what we could do. We're probably not going to do much, but, we'll see what we could do. And it just doesn't make any sense. Why would you want to stay with that? You're essentially staying with a team that is willing to give you up if another team offers a good deal. And they just won't give you up because no team has offered them a good deal. And it's just I don't know what you expect in a trade package for Zach LaVine. He's not LeBron. He's not any of these high caliber players that should demand respect in a trade. I'm sorry to say this, but he's a great he's a good talent in the NBA. He's just not all that. I'm sorry, but not all that. That's really all that I can say about it. He's good, but he's just not all that. And not all that is basically just teams aren't willing to risk a big trade. And that's sort of what I feel like the Bulls are trying to get out of Zach LaVine. And I'm just if the Pelicans were able to acquire DeJounte without needing to trade away Brandon Ingram, I don't know what kind of caliber players you legitimately expect coming out of Zach LaVine. That's just me, however. So why the Chicago Bulls couldn't trade him? Ahead of the 2024 and 2025 season, the Bulls have made notable roster changes. So the Bulls were looking to trade LaVine alongside DeRozan and Caruso to nab the top pick in the 2025 draft. However, recent reports claim that the Bulls and LaVine are mending their relationship. According to Darnell Mayberry of The Athletic, LaVine has vowed not to overstep or stunt the development of younger players. Many believe his massive contract was why the Bulls could not trade him. The 29-year-old has 3 years remaining on his 5-year, $215 million contract. And again, that's another reason why he really doesn't want to why teams don't want to make a risk in that move. I didn't even bring up the contract and how much money he's getting paid for playing only 25 games in the last season. That contract is, looking at it now, it seems rather egregious given what the Bulls have been able to do in the postseason. Then at the end of the day, that is their best player. So, you have to sort of pay him the big bucks. I totally understand that point. But it seems like it's crippling the franchise a little bit. And let me know in the comments what you guys think about that. But, this is really, again, no teams are going to want to trade for that kind of player under that much money. And this was a similar problem with Russell Westbrook and his contract, except the difference is teams were actually willing to get rid of Russell Westbrook and not pay him, and other teams were willing to use Russell Westbrook to see how much effectiveness they can get out of it. So it was a weird situation with Russell Westbrook, but it's he was traded from OKC to Houston, then immediately from Houston all the way to Washington, then from Washington to the LA, then from LA all the way to Utah. Then he signs back with the different LA team. Then the LA team trades him back to Utah, where he then gets a contract buyout and then goes to Denver. It's chaos. It was chaos with the Westbrook situation. And mainly, well, at the beginning, when he actually still had the massive contract with OKC, this was the reason why teams were trading him, because they didn't want to pay the contract. this is sort of the same thing, except a little bit vice versa, just a little bit, because now the thing is Zach LaVine has all the money, but teams are not willing to pay him that money, and they don't see any use in him. So it's not a very ideal situation. Now, again, LaVine, when he played in a full season, 77 games, he did average 24 points in 2022 and 2023, along with 4 rebounds and 4 assists as well. Despite starting the season on a high, scoring his career high 51 points on October 28th, LaVine's injury in February ended his season, and the Bulls guard must perform well in the upcoming season to get traded before the deadline. People and teams have to find and see the usefulness in Zach LaVine before they actually pull the trigger on a trade, and that hasn't really been something that the Bulls can showcase given his injury status and how often he gets injured, and it's really hurting this team. So that's all that I really have to say about the whole Zach LaVine situation. So now we're going to go ahead and go into the 4th segment, where I give a bit of an update on Kristaps Porzingis and his injury and when he's expected to recover right after this short break. So be sure to stay tuned.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.